All right, well, welcome everyone. My name is Adriana Zúñiga. I am a faculty member at the Udall Center for Studies in Public Policy and at the School of Landscape Architecture and Planning at the University of Arizona. And I am very grateful that you decided to join us today for this guest lecture by Professor Marie-Noëlle Carré. She was trained in geography and land planning. She completed her PhD at Université Sorbonne-Nouvelle Paris 3 in France. She dedicated her PhD to waste governance and management in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And her postdoctoral research, she completed it at the Centre de Recherche et Éthique at Université de Montréal. And she did her postdoc on environmental and political ethics of closure sanitary landfills in Montreal, Quebec in Canada. So she currently works as a project director in an urbanism and planning company in Montreal. She also is a lecturer at the Université de Montréal and teaches in the postgraduate program Environment and Sustainable Development. As an associate researcher to the CREDA, or the Centre de Recherche et de Documentation des Amériques in France, Marie-Noëlle is involved in the research program GUYINT that looks at the challenges of the Guianas plateau's governance, that is directed by Professor François-Michel Le Tourneau from UMI iGlobes and CNRS and the University of Arizona. I have attended lectures from Marie-Noëlle. We participated jointly in a workshop early this spring. And I was fascinated by her research because it combines so many disciplines and it's really hard to find it in one person, like geography, land use planning, and ethics and water management and everything together into solving complex questions. So it's a pleasure to have Marie-Noëlle Carré with us. And the stage is yours, Marie-Carré.
Thank you, Adriana. Hello, everybody. So I hope you are well and in good health also. I speak from Quebec right now, Canada, in the city of Saint-Eustache. So it's close to Montreal in social and distanciation. So we have a thin springs now, right now, by yesterday, and now we have a rain and the river is quite high and it's close to 3 p.m. And I'm very happy to speak today with you. So I will share my screen. Up. Here we are. Well, first of all, I would like to thank the Udall Center for inviting me to present this talk. And Molly and Adriana were really great. They reorganized a physical talk into a virtual one, and it was a really good idea. So as Adriana said, we first met in January during the workshop Resource Extraction, Impacts, Resistance and Conflict Resolution, which was organized by the UMI iGlobes at the University of Arizona. And we had the idea of replicating this talk at the Udall Center in order to expand discussions on public policies and governance in urban post-extractive issues. So as you said, Adriana, I'm a geographer and I have a background in waste management and governance in Buenos Aires. And I'm currently a project manager in a land planning and urbanism company in Montreal. But I will present a case study that draws on my postdoctoral research and also a short community project manager research I had before entering in the current company I'm working in. So we are speaking of recycling post-extractive places in the metropolitan area of Montreal. And I will present you the 2 quarries we are speaking of quite soon. So why shall we interest in post-extractive spaces in metropolitan areas? First, I would say that Canada is a strategic place for mining studies. It concentrates about 75% of mining companies in the world. The highest rate of direct foreign investment in mining, 14% in the world. There are oil sands in Alberta, diamond in Northwestern Territories, lithium, copper, gold, and silver in Quebec. And I could go on quite long. But as commented by Ernst & Young, which publish annual reports on risk in mining industry is also facing important challenges. Social license to operate have become the major risk for the activity, and some solutions have been implemented, like, for example, the impact benefits agreements with the native community. Anyway, this risk has been addressed through many ways, but it is still discussed. Who should be responsible for the consequences of mining? What about mining activities in remote territories? Are they well managed and monitored, especially after the company withdrew? So this is an important debate, especially in regard to the rising legal procedures to prevent mining impact and orphanage, which is also discussed a lot in Canada. So in Quebec, most people and decision-making places concentrate in the southern part of the province. So as you can see here, where the strategic mining areas are quite far away. You see, those are the main mining areas in Quebec. So we have Abitibi-Témiscamingue, the James Bay, and also the Angeva Trough, right in this area. So it's quite far. This makes difficult for mining issues to be known, adequately reported and discussed in view of conflict resolution. There are issues connected to a high employment rate in mining, taxes, governance, legacies, but there are also extractive activities that are under the same law and which are closer to urbanized areas and considered of lower intensity. So this is the area you can see in blue on the St. Lawrence Valley. There are about 1,500 quarries in this area on the St. Lawrence lowlands, and management, either during extractive or post-extractive time, may address issues as complex as in remote areas. There are environmental legacies, which are addressed from public health, ecological, political, socioeconomic, functional, and aesthetic perspectives also. So even if they are less intense as mining in remote area, and even if they address smaller extractive and post-extractive areas, those claims make quarries interesting lab for conflict resolution. So this is particularly true in the Greater Montreal, which is a 4 million people urban area. It is the first one in Quebec, the second one in Canada, and it concentrates about 81 municipalities and 1/3 of the provincial gross product. It's about 10% of the Canadian national gross product, more or less. So as a metropolitan area, the Greater Montreal also generates a very active real estate market in which land reserves such as degraded area, industrial brownfields, old quarries, closured waste landfills are getting a larger share, especially since the sustainable urban development politics have encouraged urban densification. So those areas are considered new gold mines because of the large open space they provide to urban development in often very strategic location. And this case study I will present right now will concentrate on 2 of those spaces which have played an important role by staying functional and being recycled in the city. So those places are called the Francon Quarry and the Miron Quarry, and you can see them on the last map on this picture. Yes, I will speak of Eastern Montreal, speaking of this part of the area. In fact, this is the island of Montreal in the larger metropolitan area of Montreal. This part is called the eastern part of Montreal, and this part is called the western part of Montreal. So it has, this is relative to the orientation of the streets and not exactly the compass points, which are a bit different. So the 2 quarries we're speaking of, the Miron Quarry and the Francon Quarry, respectively cover about 150 hectares and 100 hectares. So this is about 370 and 250 acres, more or less. And the two quarries, which an average depth of about 70 meters, which is more or less 230 feet. So it's quite deep. You can see one of the largest buildings in Montreal, which is called Place Ville-Marie, could fit into one of those quarries. And they are located in the Saint-Michel district, which is one of the poorest in Canada. With close to half the residents being newcomers in the country and coming from very different places like Haiti, Latin America, and also Northern Africa and Southeast Asia. So this place is quite isolated on the island, even if the subway stops in this area, in the southern part of the neighborhood. And it is on the edge of a new urban frontier, the eastern part of Montreal, and I will go further on this topic later on. So what issue can we address, speaking of those two quarries? This case study unfolds the idea that the analysis of resistances to extractive and post-extractive issues in metropolitan areas can also address issues for political choices in more remote places. So I will go through the two main aspects, which is first one, a brief description of the long-term socio-ecological evolution of the two quarries in their urban, environmental and social environment through the notion of technical landscape. And then I will put light on two important moments for the governance of the two quarries, which are understood as moments when the resident could have a leverage action on the future of the two territories. So this will be unfolded through the analysis of contested narrative of revitalization, and this notion will help us to understand how resistance are expressed or worked on when there are few means which are available in vulnerable and less visible districts of the metropolitan area. So technical landscape, I draw on the works of Peter Gallison, and Peter Gallison, which is a landscape architect, says that technical landscape constitute the meeting point of contested relations between history, knowledge, material practices, and environmental change. And we can say that the two pits have gone through various technical landscapes in which they alternately played a role as upstream with inputs into the building of the city, and downstream as output to the city, an output of infrastructure for the city, mostly for waste. So you can see the three phases on the screen: the extractive one, the post-extractive one, which is at the second half of the 20th century, and a third nature one I will also present at the beginning of the 21st century. So the first technical landscape can be described as a handcrafted and industrial one. It is driven by the economic development of the geological asset. Limestone was mostly used to build the city of Montreal, and the extraction pits were progressively pushed back from the downtown to the suburban area as the city sprawled and expanded in the direction of the north. So it's an important moment for the development of the two quarries. You can see lime kilns at the end of the 19th century. The city produced a lot of limestone and lime for the building of the center of Montreal, which was located mostly in this area. However, it's not before the 20th century that the Francon and the Miron quarries developed as industrial pits. And during the 1960s, after the World War II, the neighborhood got bigger and was gradually incorporated into the urban fabric. The Italian community settled there and was soon joined by the mixed community of newcomers from Eastern Europe who worked at the two quarries. The Miron Quarry came to be known as one of the largest cement factories in North America, and two workers commented that the city of Montreal was born from this pit. So you have the central station at the top of the screen, the Saint Justine Hospital, Ville-Marie building, and also the seaway, which was built out of the two quarries concrete. After this moment, another important moment took place in the history of the two quarries. So this is what I call the second technical landscape. It is a post-industrial one. This situation gradually rose from 1968 until the end of the 20th century. The urban sprawl gradually reached the Saint-Michel neighborhood and circled the two quarries. So the Miron brother, who owned the Miron quarries, decided to mix limestone extraction with another activity, which is waste disposition. So from 1968, more or less, and until the end of the 20th century, the city of Montreal and 26 suburban municipalities sent refuse to the Miron quarry. This is a lot of refuse. It's about 40 million tons of refuse which were disposed there until the closure at the end of the 1990s, more or less. For the Francon quarry, extraction gradually stopped because the place was more and more difficult to access and impossible to expand. As you can see on the picture, it's really circled by urbanization. The Francon quarry also became an output infrastructure for a very specific type of waste, which is snow. And actually, it is the largest snow deposit on the island of Montreal. So you have 40% of the total snow produced on the island of Montreal deposited in this area. It's about 1 million cubic meter. And during winter storm, you can imagine that 150 trucks per hour circulate in the area in the transit network to deposit snow. So you can see a whole amount of snow in this area. All the darker spots on the picture are in fact snow deposits. And this is a picture took at the beginning of the spring, and the snow lasts until the end of the summer, more or less, because it's quite long to melt. So the two quarries went through a shift in socio-ecological interaction. This is a shift also in knowledge and material practices. They went upstream, like an input to downstream urban production, and from industrial to post-industrial, from an urban frontier, as shown on the first picture, the 18th century one, to inner, more or less inner urban. So this is an important shift, and I would say that the third technical landscape connected to this activity rejoins what Anna Tsin calls third nature. So a nature that learned how to live in spite of capitalist spaces production logics. This nature was born from new arrangements between biodiversity and contamination. There are different forms of third nature in these two quarries. The Miron quarry closed during the late 1990s, and the city of Montreal decided to convert it into a larger metropolitan park in the urban area. It was a large investment of $50 to $60 million, and the park was also presented at the Shanghai Universal Exposition in 2010 as an example of good practice in urban redevelopment. The park was converted to outdoor activities, hiking, biking, Nordic skiing and snowshoeing, wildlife observation and interpretation. And this area was also converted into a place where experiences to fight or mitigate climate change were led by the city. This is for you, Adriana, because I didn't have it in the first presentation, but I remember this is a topic of your interest. So methane, the accumulation of waste produces methane. So it's a gas which is produced by waste decomposition. and its impact on greenhouse gas production is evaluated to 20 times as important as carbon. So it's a high impact production, and methane is drained in a subterranean network and burnt into producing heat and electricity. So it is drained out of the landfill in order to be reused, recycled into producing heat and electricity for the neighbor, and also a large building nearby, which is a circus showroom, which is quite known in the city of Montreal. So the new park belongs to a new generation of green spaces in urban areas, degraded spaces that paradoxically supplements also nature deficit in urban areas. And this comes with specific planning issues, because as you have methane pits in the area. Methane is still active. It's quite dangerous because it is flammable in contact with oxygen. So it could be a matter of public security. So you have, I don't know if you see on this picture, a kind of balls around the methane pits, which are used to control methane activity and also the pits activity. So this produces quite a strange landscape in this area because you have, of course, outdoor activities going on just in the proximity with methane captation issues. So in the Francon Quarry, we have another situation. It is still a small deposit, but it also has become something else, that is a shelter for biodiversity, which is less contaminated than the Miron Quarry because there was no waste deposit. And the Francon Quarry is part of the informal, it was identified as an informal biodiversity island, and it's part of the network which exists on the island of Montreal, and which was reported through biodiversity surveys. So we have peregrine falcons, groundhogs, small rodents, raccoons, and also mature maples, ashes, white birches, trembling aspen that can be seen, coyotes also transiting by the nearby railways. We can see on the last picture, no, we cannot see it, but it's in fact behind the photographer. And the Francon Quarry is still a visible landmark on the eastern edge of the Montreal Island. It became a very contested place during the last 20 years, in part because of the opportunities that was seen in terms of urban development, and also because transforming this area would be a large investment. So this is where analysis of the contested narratives of revitalization can be introduced. So on the long term, the three landscapes I presented seem to be part of a more general evolution of the urban fabric and the conversion of sacrifice spaces. Yet from the point of view of governance, they also enlighten how contested visions on urban development can lead to choices upon the future of those derelict lands. The eastern part of Montreal, it's a very industrialized and contaminated area. So when I speak of the eastern part of Montreal, I speak of this part of the island. And it's a contaminated place where there are gas refineries, deposits, factories, industrial parks, and other quarries. And many of the unwished by necessary metropolitan activities concentrate in this part of the city. But it's quite paradoxical. It's also a place, a very strategic place in the metropolitan area, because the industrial port of Montreal should be relocated downstream somewhere close to those areas which are contaminated. So there is expectation in terms of urban development, and tensions gradually grew over the future of these places, these contaminated places. And this involves the two quarries because they are quite close to important infrastructure, such as the subway, and they are really framed by the highway in the eastern part of the island. So we are in the face of an important debate, and their recycling into productive spaces has been addressed under many ways, and especially the revitalization issue. When we speak of revitalization in the Saint-Michel district, that is in the neighborhood I'm speaking of, revitalization has been the main conflictive topic during the end of the 20th century, in fact, with constant redefinition, contestations, and this discussion has taken many forms, the first one being the problem of recycling and converting an urban area. This brought a lot of discussion between the district scale and the metropolitan scale for who and what kind of territory should the area be recycled and converted. A second issue that is less addressed but is present, in fact, in the discussion, the problem of mining issues more than quarrying. There is interest for the future of mining areas in Quebec, but quarries are less addressed. There are organized interests and political agenda on the topic of mining and less on the topic of quarries. It is the same legislation, but the issue is not as big as for other kind of mining. So this is a question. And the third problem is the one of enacting principles and values relative to sustainable urban development. So once again, who should decide and propose the most important principle on urban development in this area, which is more vulnerable, socio-economically vulnerable than the other parts of the city. So the notion of revitalization was an important one to understand the decisional agenda on the two quarries and the tensions that would occur over it. The narrative also refers to the way events are perceived and resisted also into discourses. So we can wonder what happens when discourses are not available or hardly produced, or when actors are at a loss to being listened to. So those are the questions I would like to present through this second part of the presentation. I would first say that revitalization was first connected to the issue of public health. I would say that one of the most predominant topics was the question of environmental uncertainty and livable environment. Because we had a coexistence with the sanitary landfill and limestone blasting and also a residential area. Yet, this question, which was a worry for the neighbors of the waste landfill, was also considered under another point of view by the city decision maker. During the 1960s, the city considered the opening of the landfill, that is the Miron Quarry, as an improvement to livable environment in the most densely populated area. In fact, it had allowed the closure of the many incineration plants you can see on the left-hand side of the picture that were ill-managed and caused important air pollution. So this was an improvement in public health, even if the problem was moved to a specific part of the city in the form of waste landfill. So in the 1989, there was so much opposition to the sanitary landfill that the Miron cement factory's chimneys were symbolically destroyed after the citizens made important pressure in the media. The sanitary landfill was considered as full, and citizens' narrative obtained a voice at the National Assembly, at the City of Montreal, and the City of Montreal came to promise to the citizens that the area would be transformed into a park, which is the park we saw on the pictures before. So this was an important moment which made the question of public health and revitalization addressed in the city, and the artist Alain Martin Richard also paid a tribute to this area through the performance which celebrated the resistance of the citizens in the neighborhood and a play on words. So on this picture, which is the Saint-Michel newspaper, the neighborhood newspaper, you have a paper on Trou de Mémoire, which is a memory hole, and which refers to the physical depression which was caused by the limestone extraction and waste accumulation in the pit, and also to the fact that the urban history is usually reluctant to recall technical places such as waste deposits and their workers, because it's not a good image to the city you bring through a waste deposit. In the Francon Quarry, we had a more complex and current situation that went at the first front during the beginning of the 21st century. It involved urban and economic development issues and the transformation of the Miron Quarry into a metropolitan park in the late 20s. Generated a shift in the narratives of revitalization. That is a shift in space, in contents, and also in issues. The narrative began to refer to revitalization as a series of action and tools that were meant to inject economic and urban redevelopment in a socio-economically depressed area. And at the beginning of the 2000s, the local organization tried to stimulate local economy, proposing the development of first a camping, recreative vehicle camping in the Francon Quarry, where recreatouristic assets of the quarry were seen as tragic to create local employment. But this project was not considered, and it was soon replaced by another, the development of a Walmart in the quarry. And this was seen as an important project, as in 2006, the city had already tried to gain over the eastern frontier of the island of Montreal through the implementation of a rapid transit bus. So the city also proposed a program of integrated urban revitalization in order to make a socioeconomic leverage, and the Walmart was part of this, but it was rejected by the community and abandoned by the promoter itself. There were too many works to be done. So after that, because of this project, the local community organization decided to have a voice. It was quite hard for them to get a voice in the previous discussion on the Walmart. And so they decided to stimulate new expressive options in the neighborhood. And this had the purpose to give visibility to the Francon Quarry, which is mostly invisible, as hard as it can be, from the neighbor housings. You can see this is the Francon Quarry, and so public transportation goes around the Francon Quarry. A young resident which lives in the eastern part of the neighborhood, this part, has to take 3 public transit buses in order to reach the local secondary school, which is there, because the buses do not connect, and they have to make a great, a big way to get there. So it's quite long. It's about 1 hour and a half of public transport, but until the beginning of the 2010, most of the youth did not know that there was a quarry in there that would make their way more difficult to the school or to their houses. So it was decided to have a reconnaissance activities with the youth of the neighborhood. The community organization decided to make this area more visible and to organize an expedition on bicycle lanes and more secondary transit area streets in order to circle the quarry and to know better this place. Second, the community organization decided also to make more visible the Francon Quarry and to enhance its knowledge in the community with a mural art program, which was organized by the City of Montreal. So they applicated for the art mural program, and they managed to hire Fluke, which is a renowned mural artist, and they designed a mural which is called Éclosion, blooming, on the secondary school I showed you before. So the artist was deeply impressed by the waste wilderness specificity of the Francois Quarry, and he decided to put on stage the peregrine falcon, which was surveyed in the area. Anyway, so all those activities, and especially the mural art one, was supported by the City of Montreal, but the step of engaging the community into revitalizing and planning the development of the area was still not achieved. So the community organization decided to have an activity which would involve the neighbors into deciding for the future of their area. So revitalization was seized as a keyword to define the community capacity to positively impact decisions on their living environment. Revitalization was inserted into narratives on socioeconomic resilience and supported by new stakeholders, such as Centraide United Ways, which is the main philanthropic organization for the voluntary sector and social services in Canada. So from 2016 until 2018, the community organization concentrated efforts on the Francois Quarry and perceived it as a strategic area for the development of the eastern part of Montreal. So a set of reconnaissance activities aimed at putting together a collective sensitive experience that would promote sharing, living, and territorial appropriation in this neighborhood. In the end, as you can see on the picture, so there were walks organized with the youth, with more exposed people, such as newcoming women or groups of young girls and women also in the area, in order to inform all the population. Also, children were involved into these activities. So. And the community organization tried to reach every type of people in the neighborhood in order to have them participate into a forum, a citizenship forum, that would be an activity of community planning in the area. So there was a final proposition which included the building of a gateway over the quarry and also a multi-service building, social and accessible housing, and also an innovating solution for the snow deposit treatment, which is a long-term infrastructure that could not be removed, at least on the short term. And also an urban farm, a public market and green spaces were also imagined in order to complement lacks observed in the neighborhood during the summer, especially in food security. So this is more or less the elements that were brought forth by the community organization. Anyway, in my conclusion, I have some remarks. I would say that all this discussion I presented was to show how conflict resolution can work in a situation in which existing tools provided by government and extractive companies to solve tensions are or not operational. In this case, so we have extractive and post-extractive legacies, which are a matter of urban and metropolitan development, where transactions between stakeholders balance conditions of living, local development opportunities, and also governance leverage. Anyway, where the urban can contribute to the discussion about the most appropriate level of environmental governance in the quarries and in extractive and post-extractive spaces. But well, in the case of the two quarries I presented, the provincial level plays a very marginal role in all those discussions. The metropolitan context puts in evidence that the two quarries become a leverage for urban visibility for stakeholders that were expected, like the City of Montreal and private investors, for example, or stakeholders that were less expected, like Centraide United Ways, the philanthropic organization, and also the local community organization. Anyway, as an epilogue, I would say that the activities I last presented on the Francois Quarry were stopped after the municipal elections, and until now, I haven't seen any changes or progress in the implementation of the community urbanism experiment that were led between 2016 and 2018. So thank you for your attention. And of course, if you have any question, I would be glad to discuss it with you.
Wow, thank you so much, Marie-Noëlle, for a wonderful presentation and sharing your experience with us with this case study in Montreal, from a big quarry, a hole in the ground, to landfill and waste disposal, and then to a park, considering the public community engagement. That's kind of a great transition into what urban planning has also been in the last century or so. So thank you very much. Before we open it up for questions, I'd like to just take a moment to thank Molly Bryson from the Udall Center for handling all the RSVPs and all the coordination for this talk. So thank you so much, Molly. And then we will just take questions as we go. If you can, you know, raise your hand. There's, I think, a mode in participants where you can raise your hand, or just put your video and raise your hand, however you want to start your question. Do we have hands up? Well, while we have volunteers for questions, let me ask a question about that. I do have a question, because so often we have the case when we have a revitalization for a park, for example, when we are bringing green space to a neighborhood that is low income because they are deprived of vegetation, of green space. And many times when these big projects happen, then we see further injustice in terms of gentrification, where you know, the prices of properties rise because this new amenity is now in this neighborhood, and the prices, housing prices, displaces the poor further. And do you see any signs of that happening? I know it's not implemented yet, but maybe the city of Montreal has some tools to prevent gentrification. What do you think, Marie-Noëlle?
Yeah, this is an important question, and in fact it was addressed by the local community organization at the beginning of the community planning activities in the Francois Quarry, because as they were part of the fight against the waste landfill, and they participated into the conversion of the waste landfill into a park. The community organization was well aware of what could happen in this area. So what was, now there were, until from the beginning of the transformation of the waste landfill into a park, and until now, which is partly open, there were review. One of my colleagues, which is named Violaine Jolivet, had a review of real estate prices in this area in order to see if any rise in the prices would be created because of the presence of the park. And until now, she could not identify any significant rise. Anyway, we are in an area where the housing is in a really bad state. So this the gentrification would also mean putting, replacing the housing in order to have, for example, high standard buildings in this area. So this takes a bit longer. What we can see, and just let me get back my presentation just to show you, if you see this, this is the area which was transformed. We cannot see it all, but this is the area which was transformed into a park. There were transformations seen more on the northern part of the park, where there was vacant land, so land that could be developed. And also on the western part of the park, we cannot see on this picture, where there was also vacant land and also higher income neighborhoods. So there were also dynamics of real estate investment in this area. What was decided with the city of Montreal was to develop economically to have economic development on the main streets close to the two quarries. But there was no decision taken in order to prevent any gentrification. Anyway, the question was addressed during the Walmart discussion, because the city was expecting the Walmart to have a spinning effect on urban redevelopment in this area. So until now, I would say there are no obvious results that gentrification will happen soon. Anyway, this is something people and especially community organizations are concerned with. And all the community planning activities between 2016 and 2018 brought forth this question. So even citizens that were, well, we are in a very poor area, so, and people do not always speak either French or English, so it's quite difficult for them also to participate into this kind of activities. Anyway, the question of eviction, of being sent further in the metropolitan area was brought forth because people wanted to have social housing in or close to this quarry, first in order to stay in the neighborhood where they have their family, their connection, and also to see a green space that would be for them or developed for them and not for other people. So yeah, this is an important topic.
Thank you. Jessica, you have a question? I saw your hand up.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting. I have a couple of questions. The first question was on the first quarry where they have those little structures look like igloos in the park. I didn't quite understand what those are for. Could you explain those, please?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they are like igloos. It's true. They are protection infrastructure over methane pits. So that is when you have a sanitary landfill, the sanitary landfill produces methane. In order to captate it and to lead it to, for example, a transformation plant in order to burn it and make energy and produce electricity, you have to captate it through a network of subterranean tubes, let's say. So you have 300 kilometers of subterranean tubes in the landfill. They cannot be seen on the picture I show you because they are under the waste. But anyway, you have to control this network because waste is moving a lot. So you want to see if the tubes, for example, are not compressed by waste movement and to see if methane is still circulating. So you have part of this network, there are observation stations which are at the surface of the waste landfill, and these are kind of tubes. Also, I do not have a picture right now, but this is just figure it. Oh yeah, sorry, I have one at the end. Yeah. Here, there are these kind of small tubes on the picture. Well, it looks like that before they put the igloo on it to prevent people from going there and playing with it because it's quite a dangerous infrastructure. So the igloos are kind of protective infrastructure over these tubes, and only technical staff can go in and check for the methane infrastructure. So it's quite an issue, and it was for a long time, it was an issue at the city of Montreal because they wanted to find a solution that would make it easy to control this security issue on the site. So you want to see if methane infrastructure is going well, because if it's not going well, it may explode. And they also wanted something that would be aesthetic in order to fit into the metropolitan park. So that is the igloo question.
Is the energy that's produced, does it stay in the area there, or is it distributed throughout all of Montreal?
Yes, you have well, energy is distributed first into this building I commented, the circus showroom, the circus building, because it's a building that relies on energy produced on the site. But energy is also distributed in the neighborhood. And in fact, in 1998, you had a big freeze in Montreal. I think it's a freeze event. So there was a lot of damage in the metropolitan area, and especially people did not have access to electricity during this time for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, even in some areas. But the neighborhood remained, well, there was electricity in the neighborhood because energy was produced by the site, and it was not only dependent on the lines that come from James Bay, that is several hundred of kilometers away. So at this moment, the waste landfill was producing lots of methane because it was at the beginning of its closure. So waste was very active. Now, I wouldn't say that if another freeze event would happen, maybe all the neighborhood could not be supplied with energy. But at this moment, it was a very good alternative option for energy production and supply.
So eventually, will the methane be depleted?
Yeah, depleted, that is all gone?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, of course, because waste, one decomposed, does not produce any more methane, but you have 40 million tons and a lot of organic matter. So you have for 20, 40 years still of methane to be produced.
Okay, and then one more question I had about your map, that one of the last maps you showed that had the right there, that one, yeah. The northern park. Now, do I understand correctly that they were stopped from developing that into a park, or did they finish that?
Well, you are speaking of this park, this area. Well,
yes.
It's still a quarry. So, well, it's still an old quarry. Sorry, it's a belonging of the city of Montreal. No limestone is extracted from this area, but it is used as a snow deposit. So it is a strategic infrastructure. You can see the snow and the snow lake, well, the water, in fact, produced by the snow here. So it is a strategic area because the city of Montreal needs these places to deposit snow during winter. Anyway.
Can you go in there and walk around? Is that?
Yeah, I did go, but not everybody can go. So it's
not for public.
Closed area. It's not for public because the city does not want people to go in. So this is why also most of the citizens do not know that there is a quarry, because as you can see on this picture, for example, we are in front of the quarry, but there are lots of trees, and there is a distance between the place where we are in the street and the quarry itself. So people, as it is 2 or 3 story buildings in the area, it's not high enough to see into the quarry, even if you are close to it. So all the activity, the community planning activity, was made through this kind of thing that is a model, a small model that represented the quarry, pictures, imagination, because it was not possible to go into the quarry to see it, or even to imagine access on the short term, for example, in bicycle, summer, or anything. It's closed right now.
So this model is a dream of what they'd like it to be.
This model, no, it's a model of the quarry itself. So that is, oh yeah, you have the camping, in fact, because the model was made by the community organization when they wanted to have a recreative vehicle camping in the quarry. So they modeled the sites, the camping sites, and where they modeled also the lake and the snow deposit, which is in this part of the quarry, that is the eastern part, in fact. But as it is camping, it's not quite transformed, and it looks like very much what you can see in the quarry in terms of topography and also vegetation, because there are a lot of mature trees and yeah.
What do you think the chances are that it'll actually ever get developed like the other quarry?
To develop other quarry? In the metropolitan area?
Yes.
Oh, in fact, there are other quarries. There are, in the eastern part I commented before, there is another one. It's quite close to be it's quite as big as the one I commented before. Before the two quarries we were speaking of in this area, and you have another one in the eastern part, which is really big. But I would say that right now there is no discussion on the future of this quarry, because there is a residential area quite close to it, in fact on the western part of the quarry, but it is still in activity, and there is no discussion on the future. But sure, there will be, because the eastern part is developing a lot. So the city of Montreal will have to manage both the environmental legacy and as in the two previous quarries, the transformation or integration into the urban area of this place. And the quarries that are developing right now are not inside the metropolitan area, because there are a lot of tensions on developing impacting activities inside the metropolitan area. But anyway, as I showed before, well, at the beginning of the presentation, you have more on the St. Lawrence Valley, so in less populated area, but anyway, close enough to be reached by trucks and to transport material. So I would say that the ecological print of the metropolitan area is expanding also through the opening of quarries further spaces.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions, guys? Either raise your hand in the mode or connect your video and actually raise your hand. If there aren't any more questions, I do have another question, if I may. In one of the pictures you showed, Marie-Noëlle, there is like a drawing of a bridge. Is it part of the design of that park to connect? You talked about the lack of connectivity between one side of the quarry and the other side. So is that bridge aimed to solve that problem?
Yeah, in fact, on the mural art, the bridge is presented such as the San Francisco Bridge or a bigger bridge. But yeah, during the community planning event, it was considered to have, in fact, a multi-connection bridge that is not only a bridge that would cross the quarry, but that would also connect to other parts of the the neighborhood. So you wouldn't have one link, you would have many links that would connect in the at the center, let's say, of the quarry. But this is also a technical question, which is interesting because building a pathway or bridge over such a deep quarry, it's also a technical issue. And besides, this question was also addressed previously during the tables on the planning of the Miron quarry, that is the one with the waste landfill, because people cannot cross, right now it's not possible, currently it's not possible to cross the park because the park is open, but only by sections. So you cannot cross the park to go, for example, to visit your friend or to circulate in the area. So it was considered to have a pathway built, and there is also a technical question there because building over waste is not always possible. It's not stable. So the pathway would have to be built over the rock, but the rock is not always accessible because it's also covered by many layers of waste. So the question of bridges and connection and isolation are very important in this area because of the two quarries legacies. Yeah.
Right.
If there are no questions, I have one.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Marie-Noëlle, can I ask you to stop sharing your screen so we can see all the screens at the same time? And maybe there's someone's raising their hand and I'm not seeing them.
Okay. Up here we are. Yeah. Yeah, I know that there are many mining areas in Tucson. So do you have any issues related with urban development and mining areas? I remember that there is a project south of Tucson, but closer to the city. Did you have any situations like that for which we could bring a solution and share discussion?
Yeah, sure. We do have mining close to Tucson, to the metropolitan area in the south. We have a mine called Pima, I think Pima mine.
Yeah.
Correct me someone if I'm saying things wrong, but there is a mine. I think you visited it when you guys came here. I don't know if you joined the tour, and there is just across the freeway a residential area called Saguarita. It's like a new development over there. Obviously, the housing is really cheap because it's just across the mine. I'm not sure if the residents are aware of that's the reason. There are heavy metals in the air, dust problems with heavy metals that are obviously linked to bad health, public health. So yeah, we do have similar issues. And there is a big mining, copper mining close to Tucson also in legal contest right now, the Rosemont mine, that is really famous. There's a lot of controversy around that project going on. I think it's still in the courts. One day it's winning, one day it's losing. So we have big mining problems here as well.
Yes, I know all about those two mines. Actually, I sell real estate, and I had a property listed on the other side of Pima Mine Road, and you could see all of the tailings from the mine. And that was one of the biggest difficulties of selling that house, is people didn't want to be so close to the mine, and they've had to cover the tailings so that the dust doesn't carry as much as it used to. So really big problem for the residents around there. And it's a beautiful area other than that, you know. And the Rosemont mine, I think the biggest impact is on the environment and the nature and the endangered animals that have their habitat there, and, you know, eventually what would happen to that beautiful countryside. So I get both sides of it, you know, the economic impact of having a copper mine, but it just seems like to destroy all of that beautiful, beautiful desert area is a kind of a crime.
Yeah, I feel that way, but it's so hard to see a revitalization of extractive place. The quarry is a good example there, but there are no heavy metals associated with that industry. So I think it's possible to have nature come back and people wandering around without many health impacts other than the methane, right? But,
yeah. But they're being able to convert that and recycle that into energy. Which
isn't that wonderful?
Wonderful. I mean, that's a really great way to use it. And you know, all landfills have methane. You know, we have those in our own landfills. It just comes with it. So to be able to repurpose that is really, that's very smart. And I think the nature comes back, like we saw in the slides that Marie showed. You know, the animals are coming back, and the peregrine falcon, and so they do return.
Yep. Thank you, Jessica. We have a question. Ben, nice to see you. Hi.
I might have missed it. I got a phone call. I'm sorry. I was participating during my lunch break. But who funded these projects?
The first one, that is the Miron Quarry, which is the waste landfill project. The city of Montreal decided to fund the transformation into a park. So it was between 50 and $60 million on 10 years. So it was a really big investment for a park, but there was a lot of technical inputs as commented. So, yeah, this is one of the last big projects that were funded by the city of Montreal. Now the issue is to go on with funding urban recycling, but mostly through decontamination on the eastern part of Montreal. This is also a huge amount of money, and the provincial level and the municipal, well, the city of Montreal and the provincial level of government are gathering funds into transforming this area into a redeveloping, potentially redeveloping area. The other one, the Francon Quarry, all the planning, the community planning process was funded by CNRS, which is the main philanthropic organization in Canada. So it's been now, I think, 10 years, more or less, that CNRS has been financing urban development issues connected with community organization and community development. And this is interesting because before that, CNRS was investing in health or employment or issues like food security. So topics that were really, sorry, I can't find the word. Well, topics that were not directly connected with urban development. And it's been now 10 years that CNRS invests into more comprehensive projects. So this is interesting in regard with all the discussion on developing the city by projects, to see a philanthropic organization investing into an urban project. And I found it interesting as a shift in how funding is distributed among the country.
Do you
very interesting.
To be public-private partnerships?
In this case, there were, well, in this case, there was no public-private partnership because the city of Montreal, for example, lets the community organization organize a community planning activity and lets CNRS, that is a philanthropic organization, fund the community organization, but they are not willing to let the Francon Quarry be replanned by the community. So it's a kind of a specificity I did not mention, but there is a distance between what the city of Montreal would like to develop in the Franco Quarry, which is a strategic area right now. So it's the snow deposit, and it's one of the last areas close to the inner city that can be filled with impacting activities. It was said to before the selection plant, the waste selection plant, that is, for example, plastic, cardboard, metals, etc. The selection plant was located in the Miron Quarry, that is close to the wasteland field, that is close to the park. Now there is a park. The selection plant is considered to be moved to the Franco Quarry, which is the waste deposit. So there is a snow deposit. So this is a place where strategic but harmful or impacting activities can still be located. So having a community planning activity on this quarry was not seen as good news, let's say, by the City of Montreal. Anyway, the community organization had support from local elected people because they know their people, they are in their neighborhood, but at the central level, it's an issue.
I have one more question.
Yeah, of course.
Where they're doing the methane reclamation, does the money that they generate from using the methane go back to pay back the money they spent to redo the quarry?
I don't know. I don't know how this money is. Yeah, it's reinvested. Yeah. But I will check.
Thank you. I was wondering if they're able to get any of their money back, you know?
No one is working for free, that's for sure.
That's true. Thank you very much.
Do we have any other question, guys? We had at some point 31 participants, so we have great attendance, just so you know, Marie-Noëlle. Right now we have 20, which is still good, very, very nice. So if anyone has any question, please turn on your video, raise your hand, or we can just finish, unless you have another comment, Marie-Noëlle. When are you coming to Tucson?
Yes, of course, I would love to. Yeah, I don't know when it will be, but I long to visit, of course, Sarah Rita mining area, and also the Rosemont project. François-Michel had told us that we would, so I would love to go there.
Yep, you're welcome whenever you want.
Yeah.
I recommend the summer though, but anyway. Right now it's nice.
But anyway, I am still available for any further question if you have. You have my, I think you have my email. It was on the last slide. So please feel free to send me any question if you have.
Thank you. You're really kind, Marie-Noëlle. Well, if that's it, I just want to thank you again, Marie-Noëlle, for your time, for sharing your expertise with us. It's always a pleasure to see you and to hear about your research. Thank you, everyone who took the time to attend this lecture, and see you around, guys.
Thank you to you all, to the Udall Center, to iGlobes, to everybody.
Thank you, Yumi, iGlobes, François-Michel, everyone. Bye.
Thank
you.
Bye.